Imagine walking into an emergency room. Your chest is incredibly tight, your breath is shallow, and your heart is just racing at a terrifying speed. You have all the classic, terrifying signs of a massive heart attack. But when the doctors rush you in and run the tests, they find absolutely nothing. Your heart is structurally perfect. Now, this isn't some hypothetical scenario. This actually happened to a 52-year-old woman whose body was screaming in physical agony, even though her heart was completely, perfectly fine. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tossing out the usual agenda so we can dive straight into the fascinating, hidden pathways that actually control our health. Today, we're looking at the ultimate biological conversation.
Okay, let's dive into this. If her heart was physically perfect, what in the world caused those very real, very terrifying symptoms? Well, the real culprit wasn't a physical defect at all. It was a severe professional setback that she had experienced 10 months prior. Think about that. Her emotional trauma had actually manifested as a physical emergency. This just brilliantly proves that our bodies aren't just biological machines functioning in isolation, right? They are literal physical mirrors of our minds. The boundary between mental and physical, it simply doesn't exist the way we've been taught.
In fact, did you know that 90% of all primary care visits have a stress-related component? 90%. That is absolutely staggering. When we go to the doctor for aches, pains, fatigue, or illness, almost every single time, stress is playing a major role behind the scenes. And this number is what really launches our investigation today. Because if stress is driving 90% of our ailments, we really need to understand the hidden communication network inside us that translates a stressful thought into a physical symptom.
That brings us to our first major clue in this medical mystery. Part 1, the chemical ghost, and the HPA axis. For far too long, modern medicine has treated the mind and the body as two completely separate systems. Like if you have a physical problem, you see one doctor. If you have a mental problem, you see another. But treating them as separate is a fundamental mistake because, as biology tells us, they share a common, incredibly powerful language. The mechanism behind that shared language is the HPA axis. This is the communication network connecting your brain to your kidneys, and it's the system that triggers a flood of cortisol when you're stressed. Now, what's really interesting here is that in short bursts, cortisol is amazing. It's your ultimate protector. It sharpens your focus to help you escape immediate danger. But here's the problem. In our modern world of endless emails, traffic, and constant notifications, the alarm literally never turns off. A biological system meant for short-term survival has effectively turned against us.
When cortisol stays high constantly, this chemical ghost silently damages the body over time. It becomes a slow-acting poison. It actively suppresses your immune system, making you way more vulnerable to illness. It drives systemic inflammation throughout your entire body. It even accelerates aging right down at the cellular level. But perhaps the most paradigm-shifting point here is the link to depression. Because of this systemic inflammation, medical science is radically reframing depression. We're starting to view it not just as a mood disorder, but as a systemic, inflammatory condition of the whole body.
Actually, let's do a quick somatic check-in right now. Seriously, pause for a second wherever you are. Are your shoulders tight right this moment? Is your jaw clenched? If you're carrying that physical tension, that is your HPA axis whispering to you. That's the chemical ghost in action. Ask yourself, what is your body trying to say right now that your mind is trying so hard to ignore? So if modern stress is making us this sick, how on earth did our ancestors cope? Let's transition to part 2. The ancestral pharmacy and traditional wisdom.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how reliant we still are on that ancient wisdom. 40% of today's modern pharmaceutical products actually draw directly from nature and traditional knowledge. I mean, almost half of the medicines you find in a sterile, bright pharmacy aisle have their roots, quite literally, in the natural world and the practices of indigenous healers. Before we had synthetic pills, humans relied entirely on roots, natural compounds, and the powerful rituals of healing to survive.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's contrast these ancient survival strategies with their modern equivalents. 3,500 years ago, Sumerians used willow bark to ease the immense pain of childbirth. Today, we know the active ingredient in that bark is the exact foundation of modern aspirin. Or take yarrow, known as the battlefield healer used by the mythical Achilles to stop bleeding. Today, we have modern coagulants. Indigenous healers didn't just look at a plant and see foliage. They saw a chemical survival strategy. But, when we moved from foraging in the forest to simply picking up a plastic pill bottle at the pharmacy, we gained convenience, sure, but we lost the essential, grounding ritual of healing itself. The absolute beauty of this is that science is finally catching up to those ancient healers. Consider artemisinin. This is a landmark modern treatment for malaria that has saved countless lives. And it wasn't discovered in a vacuum. It was discovered by a Chinese scientist who specifically turned to ancient medical literature for clues. This proves for sure that traditional practices are not just mere home remedies or old wives' tales. They are the very biological foundations of modern medicine.
Which leads us to a really common phenomenon. Why do we feel mental anxiety in our physical stomach? It's time for part 3, feeding the second brain and the gut-brain axis.
The reason you feel those anxious butterflies is the vagus nerve. This is a literal biological superhighway that provides direct physical communication between your gut and your brain. It's not a metaphor, guys. They are hardwired together. This undeniable physical connection has birthed a rapidly growing, super fascinating field known as nutritional psychiatry. Let's see how this builds.
Research shows that a psychobiotic diet, one that's rich in fiber and colorful fermented foods like kimchi or yogurt, can actually lower your perceived stress in just one single month. Crazy, right? How? Because your gut microbes are responsible for producing neurotransmitters like serotonin, which regulates your mood. By feeding our gut, we are literally feeding our mental health. The tragedy here is that in a modern world filled with fast food, we're living a fast life that is quite literally starving our second brain.
So what happens when we go the opposite direction? What happens when we use the absolute power of nothing as the ultimate medicine? Let's explore part 4, the science of silence and forest bathing. Over in Japan, there's this beautiful practice called Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. It's just a simple act of immersing yourself in the woods. But the biology behind it? It's staggering. When you walk among the trees, you inhale phytoncides. These are organic chemical defense compounds that trees release just to protect themselves. But when we humans inhale them, it creates this incredible cascading biological benefit. It boosts our natural killer, or NK cells, which is our body's elite defense force against viruses and cancer. Just 20 minutes in the woods is enough to significantly lower your blood pressure and drop your heart rate. Nature literally acts as a proactive defense force for your body.
And it's not just the trees, it's the quiet. Constant modern noise keeps your stress pathways perpetually activated. But true silence isn't empty. Silence is an actual neurological event. Escaping constant noise allows your nervous system to finally settle down. When you sit in a truly quiet room, your brain shifts gears, and silence has actually been shown to stimulate the growth of brand new cells in the hippocampus, the structural center of your brain responsible for memory and emotion. Think about that. You are physically changing the structure of your brain simply by seeking out quiet.
This brings us to the climax of our investigation today, Part 5, the ritual of slowness and the placebo effect. We live in a society that's completely obsessed with speed and efficiency. We value doing things faster, way over doing them better. But the slow living movement isn't just some aesthetic trend you see on your social media feed. Doing things at the right speed is a biological imperative for our survival and our health.
So, the crucial point is perfectly illustrated by the placebo effect. In a study on migraine relief, a real drug was, of course, 100% effective. But a known placebo, a pill the patients actually knew was totally fake, was still 50% as effective for their pain. How is that even possible? Because the ritual of treatment, that slow, deliberate act of taking care of yourself, physically tells your brain that help is on the way. The ritual itself is the medicine.
Your health is a bi-directional relationship. By choosing nature, by feeding your second brain, by finding silence, and by truly engaging in the ritual of slowness, you're stepping up to become your own healer. The most important question you can ask yourself isn't always what pill should I take, it's how can I slow down enough to hear what my body actually needs? So I want to challenge you right now. Where is your quiet room? Where do you go to let your nervous system finally settle? Let us know down in the comments. And hey, if this explainer helped you understand the profound connection between your mind and your body, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next journey into the incredible science of you. Until next time, be well and take it slow.